I see there are a couple of people waiting. We've got some likes already. Want to make sure that the audio is working before we continue. Today's a froggy stream, the last stream of 2024. It's going to be a dart frog enclosure stream because we usually do one of those once a month. I might change that and do it less often in the future, I don't know. But so far people like it, so not seeing anything in the chat. So let's make sure the chat is working. Usually by this time there's more in the chat, but this is an unusual time, so that's fine. Give people time to pop in. I see Vance is here, great. Oh, we've got some more likes showing up too. The glass is just a little bit foggy. I wiped it down a minute ago, but it looks a little foggy. I see Joseph Tavir is here. Chet is here. Young Lad and Green Jedi Monkey. Good. Just quiet today, huh? That's fair. Miss Chow? Miss Chaos? Miss Chaos. Maybe it's Miss Chaos. Okay. Cool. Am I saying that right? Ms. Chaos? Zero Cool's here. Jilly Bean from Minnesota. Amos. Jamie and Mike Fernandez is here. Ahoy. Yep. Ms. Chaos. Cool. Zero Kill was watching my Beetle Jelly video. That's cool. It's been a long time since I made that video. Wow, that's really looking kind of foggy. Let's zoom out just a little bit. I need to do some cutting back. Let's zoom back to see if we can see the whole vivarium more or less. Pretty close. I see Ali Tom is here. Nathan, did I say Seddon? How do I say that? There you can see more or less the whole vivarium now. How's that? Zero Cool just hatched some Dichronorhina derbiana. Cool. Awesome. Let's see. Yeah, Young Lad, it's been a while, so it's good to have you here. And Nathan as well. Thank you, Vance. And is it Lucien? How do you say your name there? So it's evening there. I figured, yeah, it must be. But at least it's not the middle of the night there, right? In the Netherlands, like it usually is when I stream. So I'm glad that you have joined us. I need to do some cutting back. You can see there's this long, lanky plant in the middle going nuts. And there's a small bromeliad it has a pup that I need to remove because it's starting to push up against the glass in the back. The red bird here, so there's one behind this one. I need to cut back. This plant goes like crazy, so I don't feel too bad cutting it back. It'll be really long soon. So I'm gonna trim it back a bit here. Let's see. Maybe cut it here. And let's see. Cut this one here. And probably there. Take all of that right there off. And something like that. Get all this out of here. It's a lot of plant. And I love it. It's a cool plant. It's just grows like crazy. Maybe that'll make it a little bit bushier if I do that. I haven't tried growing that plant anywhere else. I don't even know what it is. There, that's a little more manageable. Let's see what I missed in the chat. So 7 p.m. for Lucien. Unable to reply. Good morning. I've had a lot of fun learning through videos made by you and Clint's Reptiles. Awesome. Yeah, I have fun making those. They are, it's always fun to hang out with Clint. And generally when I go down there, I'm hanging out for quite a while, which is a lot of fun. We make usually 2 videos at a time, and fairly often we're doing other things too while we're there. Like I think the last time I was down there, we did it was Clint's Reptile Academy, the earlier part of the day, and in the evening we did some filming, so it was really fun. Frank the Tank, welcome and thank you. Glad it's looking nice. Glad it's showing up on the screen. Hide your waffles, everyone. How often do you need to amend the soil in there? Well, I guess it depends on what you mean by amend the soil, because typically I don't replace this substrate very often. It's like we're looking at several years, maybe 5 years more or more. I had the predecessor to this Vivarium, which was a 20-gallon high, and this is a 29-gallon. I think I had this substrate in there for 5 or 6 years before, maybe longer, before I changed it out and redid this one. But from the standpoint of adding things, I do add things much more frequently than that. If you look at the top dressing here of the substrate, these are all new oak leaves that I collected not that long ago, probably a month or so ago, and added them. And that I have to do fairly often. So I do add new leaf litter. Maybe every couple of months would be ideal. I don't always get to it that frequently, but I would say adding new leaf litter probably every couple of months would be good. Jotaro, glad you popped in, even if you can't stay long. Good to have you here. It's fantastic to have you here. I'm going to see if I can do a little clipping here. We are going to do some feeding and everything too. I'm going to move these plant clippings and see if I can get into clipping the I just have to find out how to get back there to the stolon of the plant, which means you're looking at my back probably for a minute here. Sorry. Oh yeah, I think I can get in there. Cutting through the stolon there. Got it. And there we go. This is that's a pretty decent cut. This is red bird. I really like the color on these bromeliads. I know I have to figure out where to put this one. It was in a spot where, like I said, it was starting to push up against the glass. That wasn't going to work for very long. The varieties of plant that I have in here, I'm going to just kind of give you the rundown here as we answer some questions. Thank you for getting the likes going, everybody. We have 14 likes so far. If you haven't hit like, go ahead and hit like. So can you have isopods in there? I can, and I do have isopods in there. I've put several different species in there. I think the last update I did, I put some Silisticus convexus in there, and they seem to be doing fine. Maybe I can dig around a little bit and we can see if we can find some. So let me give you a little tour of the plants in here, what's going on, and then the animals, of course. This is live sphagnum moss. It's been growing in there for a while. Down here, in this patch here, as well as this big patch up here, is all ficus, quercifolia, oak leaf fig, or string of frogs. Then here I've got a little bit of rabbit's foot fern right about here. Then over here, this is Java fern. There's some Java fern up there too. It's the Windalove or lace variety. And this is a redbird neoregelia. This unidentified plant here. Behind the neoregelia and over here in this corner, there's another unidentified really small leaf plant. Don't know what that is. Then there's some more rabbit's foot fern coming up there. And then here we have some neoregelia gremlin, 2 of them. One of them is a pup of the other. And then a neoregelia, Chiquita Linda here. And then there's a little tiny one that I think might be a Gemini, but I'm not sure. And then there's mosses. There's a patch of Christmas moss right there. There's Java moss growing in various places. There's some more moss growing over here. And then there's a couple of odds and ends in there as well. But those are the plants, more or less, growing in the vivarium. How long did it take the Brahms to produce pups? Well, when I got the gremlin, it came in the mail in August and it already had a pup. So, and I've grown other bromeliads before, neoregelia specifically. Just talking about these specific individuals. I got all of the bromeliads, almost all of them, that are in here in August. And this one, I noticed this a month or so ago. So that gives you kind of an idea maybe. I don't know where to put this one for now. I'm just going to set it here a little bit right now, just right there, because I can. not because I'm going to keep it there, but because it needs to go somewhere. That's what I'm going to do, just for the moment. Now, let's see, is there anything I need to cut back at this moment? No, I think we're doing okay. I'm going to do some close-up work in there so that you can see what's going on more easily. Taking this off the tripod. We're going to move in a little bit. Sorry, there's some glare off the glass and so on. So Chet, any tips for string of frogs? This is a plant I've had for a long time. I'm trying to figure out, I've grown it in a few different situations. And most of what I'm growing right now is epiphytically, if not all of it, almost all of it is epiphytically growing. So there might be some of it rooted down in the substrate. It does like some air movement. Up here I have a screen, as you can see. This is a very fine screen. It's not like window screen, it's much finer than that. But you can kind of see the screen is a little dusty. I don't know if I can focus on the screen. But I have this up in the front, ventilating it. So there is some decent ventilation in here. But as you can see, tank gets misted frequently. I've heard that air movement is important for the string of frogs. I'm not sure whether I believe it or not. But like over here, I think what I did, I just took some, there wasn't any growing over here when I redid this vivarium back in August. I took a patch of it from over here, and I think I put a little sphagnum moss down, moist sphagnum moss, and just dropped it on the cork bark. And that's what I did. And it's been growing really well. Of course, it's being fertilized by frog and gecko waste and things like that. So, I don't know. It seems to do really well in frog vivariums and less well in drier vivariums for me. So Vance, where do you source your plants from? Well, some of these I've had forever, like the string of frogs. I got from another dart frog keeper back in, I want to say, like 2011, 2012, I don't know, maybe later than that, 2013, somewhere around there. And one of my neighbors gave me some live sphagnum moss a while ago. The Java moss and the Christmas moss I just bought on Amazon live, and this plant came with it. These I bought from, I'm trying to remember what it was. It was a bromeliad, I think it was bromeliads.com. Most of the bromeliads in here, I think, is where that came from. This plant came along with the Christmas moss too. Java fern, just bought off of Amazon. So, Mantis Garden, welcome. Yeah, I don't get to do lives often at this time, but I like to do it when I can. For those of you who, especially for those of you who can't see them at other times. Apologize for that moving stuff. I'm gonna dive in here a little bit. We can get an unobstructed view without the glass in the way, huh? I like that better. I am going to be feeding the frogs in just a minute. That's always fun to watch. This frog on the left here is a female. One next to her on the right is also a female. Let's see, where's our male? He's hanging out somewhere. He was just here. I don't know, they like to climb all over the vivarium. I'm excited about the fact that they use the whole thing. I was trying to make it so I do. I need to wipe this one down. It's got like frog logs all over it. It doesn't care, really. I think it's probably good, but see, there's a whole bunch of gunk. I don't even know what that gunk is right there. I need to wipe that off the leaf. Oh, there's our boy. Here's our male. Dart frog right there. He was calling an awful lot this summer, and despite moistening their, keeping their petri dishes in their cocoa huts, tried to keep them damp for quite a while. They didn't actually produce any tadpoles this time. They have in the past. I don't try to produce tadpoles intensively or anything, but I have raised, I believe, a total of 4 tadpoles from them, 2 froglets, and then rehomed them. Found someone else who was willing to by them, and so yeah. So Yotaro, so glad to hear Ruby's grandbaby's doing fine. We were emailing back and forth. There was a little scare there where my garter snake, red-sided garter snake Ruby, produced some snakes. Yotaro adopted some of those, and some babies have come from those now. And Ruby's grandbaby was acting really weird the other day. Is it Ezrin? Is that the name? But is doing perfectly fine now. And Chet, okay, you got a cutting from me. That yeah, tried to direct sowing into soil with my morning geckos. Okay, yeah, that could be it. I would try epiphytically in a vivarium with a lot of moisture. Just drop it on some sphagnum moss or something. Someone is asking about Armadillidium gestori with a crested gecko that doesn't really eat insects. Yeah, if it doesn't eat the insects, it probably won't eat them, but they will probably nibble on the plants like Frank the Tank was mentioning. Droth is here, awesome. Mantis garden up at 5 a.m. feeding and packing orders. You and Wally always seem to appear at midnight, and I'm well away by then. Understandable. Dwarf tree fern. I've never kept a dwarf tree fern. That sounds intriguing. So Eric, can springtails outcompete isopods? My pink springtails are exploding, the gestori not so much. I've never had that problem. I've heard a couple people talk about it. I've never had the problem. Gestori are slow to breed, fairly slow. Right? They're going to be fairly large by the time they reproduce, and they often take a little while to settle in. So if you haven't seen your gestori breed, because you got them from me just like, what was that, a month or two ago, right? Because you're local, fairly local, so I don't have to worry about shipping across state lines for you. So yeah, the gestori are going to take a while, probably, to breed. The springtails don't take very long at all, so I'm not surprised that the springtails are breeding much faster than the gestori, but I wouldn't worry about it at this point. And like Frank the Tank says, gestori, once they do reproduce, they have large broods. You might one day look in there and notice you have like 50 babies or 100 babies, something like that. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit and see what else we can see. That male moved, didn't he? I'm going to feed these guys in just a minute here. Varian Brown is here. Excellent. Glad you were able to make the live. So Mantis Garden, regarding the death feigning beetles. Yes, I did have success and produced just a couple of adults because I haven't focused a lot on it. Once I got an adult to eclose, I was really happy, of course, that it eclosed, and then I got another one to eclose, but I've been working on other projects, focusing on other projects. I haven't spent a ton of energy. I threw a couple of, not threw, but I put a couple of larvae into the incubator this spring, I guess it was, and none of those made it, but I have had adults make it. 2 successful eclosures, at least, of adults. There's a couple that may or may not have been, sometimes it can be hard to tell, but 2 that I put in the incubator as larvae, confirmed pupation, confirmed eclosure into adults. So I did have some success. And I do have some interesting news on that front coming up soon. I can't spoil the surprise yet, but in January you'll find out more about what I'm talking about. So what's native to New Caledonia? I'm not sure how to say your name. That's not Phoebe, it's spelled differently. I'm not sure how to say your name, but I would be very surprised if gestori were native to New Caledonia. Not too surprised if they live there, but if they were native to, I'd be surprised. And Avarian Brown, thank you for the super chat, and I'm glad you're enjoying the frogs. Love it. That is fantastic. I appreciate the super chat. I was acknowledging it with my, clicking on it, but I didn't say anything immediately, but I do appreciate that. So cool. All right, well, Mantis Garden, yeah, I think you can do it. So you were mentioning that your nymphs were dying shortly afterward, or you're the larvae, right? The larvae might be too dry. if you make sure that they have more of a moisture gradient in the enclosure, like a corner of the enclosure that's always moist and has some like rotted wood available for them to eat and stuff like that, as well as, they'll need other food, but to get them started, they dry out super easily. And so that might be what's happening. It's really funny. The eggs are a bit more resistant to dryness than the larvae. The larvae are super not resistant to drying out. They dry out very easily. So a lot of people end up hatching them out in super dry enclosures, and then they die. And I'm just wondering if that's what happened with yours. So Lucien, this is a 29 gallon. I'm not sure what that is in metric system, but 29 gallon, and you can see the rough size difference between that and the frogs. I have a trio in here. I really wouldn't put more dart frogs in here when I'm on the cocoa hut in there. I wouldn't put more dart frogs in here. I think this is plenty for this size. So I think 3. With larger dart frogs, well, actually a lot of species don't do well in groups. Some do. You could do more smaller dart frogs if you were doing some of the thumbnails or something. You could do more of those. But these are not thumbnails. Some of the larger dart frogs, you could probably just do 2 in here, and some of the species that are more aggressive. Thank you, Yotaro, for joining in. I'm really glad that Ezrin is doing better. Okay, let's see. How are the diadema? They are doing pretty well. I have attempted to pair them several times. In some cases overnight, so I'm not sure whether a successful pairing has occurred or not, because I never saw any actual pairing, but I did see interesting courtship behavior, so we'll see. I haven't seen any egg case yet, but we'll check it out. All the tree ferns are native, Phoebe. Okay, that makes sense. The isopods are native to France. Too cute to miss out. Now that makes more sense. Native to France, yes. That is more along the lines of what I'm expecting. So William, we've got a super chat from Droth. Thank you. Thoughts on P. Werneri die-off. Lost 4 this week. I have wet dry sides, hermit crab, heater, good ventilation, tarantula crab, hex tank. 4 this week. How many do you have, Droth? Is this like full colony, or is this, if you have like 100 in there and you happen to lose 4 in a week, that's not a huge concern. But if you had a 12 count in there and you lost 4, that is a big concern. So let me know, and then we'll see what we can narrow down. So William Durant, did you use flake soil for your blue death vending bee larva? I, lately, for the last few iterations of breeding, I have used not flake soil, but a mixture that contains like rotted wood and stuff from Invertebrate, US Invertebrate LLC produces a blue death feigning beetle substrate. That's what I've had them in for a while. When I take them out of that to incubate them, I've used various things. I think they're not as picky with that as long as it retains some moisture. And you keep the humidity around 75, relative humidity, 75%, something like that. So, we've got another super chat from Eric. Fantastic. So thank you once again to Droth for yours, and we'll continue working on your question. And thank you for Eric for this one. I have a container I would like to keep some beetles in. Is there an active alternative to blue death feigning beetles? What kind of space do they need? There are plenty. Since you are here locally in the state, I can tell you, you can find Eleodes, which are very active. They tend to be, in my experience, more active. And around here, I can find Eleodes hispilabris, Eleodes obscurus, I think it is. It's either obscura or obscurus, and they're quite big, quite active. They appreciate more vegetable matter. It's long-lived, but they can live for years. I've kept them for years. And they do really well in a very similar setup to blue death feigning beetles. They just maybe need a little bit more moisture. And what's your container like? They'll use whatever space you give them, but you could keep some in a shoebox size container. If you've got a couple, you could keep half a dozen to a dozen in a 10-gallon tank. So if that gives you an idea. All right, so Droth, you have like 25. So yeah, 4 is kind of concerning. Let's see. Do they seem to be related to anything like molting? Do you see them dying when they molt? Do you see them they're showing up dead with no apparent reason or anything like that? Let me know a little bit more about that. We're going to see if we can narrow this down. Any temperature changes or other changes in the ambient area in the room? And what temperature are they actually exposed to? Frank is asking about the heater. I don't use a heater on mine in the winter, and my room goes down to, mid 60s. I'm not saying, I can be sure that it's the heater or not, but since my room goes down to the mid 60s and my colony is doing pretty well, I don't think the cool temperatures are hurting them any. Okay, so we've got like a 2-watt heater, half full grown, half not, no signs of mismold. Okay. House gets to low 60s, and you were wondering if your house is cool. So you were losing some because your house is cool, and so that's why you got the heater. I see. Yeah, I have a fairly mature culture, and I lose some once in a while, but I haven't had a mass die-off, I don't think. Just, I'll lose some once in a while. So it might be related to temperature. And if you have about 25 of them, how long has the heater been on there? Okay, I'm going to move this a little bit, and I'm going to aim it for feeding. So just a second. Bear with me as I do this, please. It's going to be a little bit messy to do. It's going to be loud. And it's going to be wiggly. Heater's been on a week. Okay. Yeah. And if you've got the heater on the side, it's not necessarily a bad thing, especially if you see them crowding up against it. And it's only 2 watt. Because if you have it on the side, and they can always escape it, that can be a good thing. But it's also, sometimes with the temperature gradient, you can inadvertently cause a difference in moisture gradient, that causes one side of the enclosure to be super wet, just knocked the lid open, or knocked the lid down, and one side of the enclosure to be super dry, like too dry. Sometimes if there's, the temperature gradient will do that in some situations. So I'm not saying that is what happened, but it can. Especially when it's really cold, you can get a lot of condensation up against one side. If it's the ambient temperatures are cold, and then there's warm on one side of the enclosure. But it sounds like that's not what's going on. Melanie, welcome. Okay. All right, I think we're about ready to feed some frogs now. Here we go. On the menu, dusted melanogaster and Heidi-eye fruit flies. We may get some gecko sightings too of the morning geckos that are in here. There are quite a few in the enclosure, so we'll see what we got going on. Okay, so you've got a 2-watt heater. Is it like one of those hermit crab heaters that you stick on the side? Is that what's going on? In between the wet and the dry side, so they can choose either and still be near the heater if they want. That seems reasonable. When you do a temp reading on the inside of the enclosure up against the heater, what is the temperature? Now, who's that up at the top? The male is up at the top of the enclosure hopping around, and females are down here in the where the party is. I don't know what he thinks he's doing. Okay, well, low to mid 70s seems pretty reasonable, so I feel like you're doing what you should be doing. If it were getting like mid 80s, I'd worry. "28C in the bug room all day, no heat match required." That's kind of nice. I wish it were that warm in my room sometimes. Yeah, that's a good idea, what Mike Fernandez just said. Oh, there's the boy. He showed up. Showed up for some snackages. That's good. I'm going to keep dumping flies in a slow frequency here. Low frequency, low speed, so that they don't run out too fast. I checked on the confused flower beater culture to see if it was ready for them to eat some of those, because those stay still. You put them in a small, shallow container. But nope, not quite ready to feed from. And Jenna Wild, welcome, and glad to hear it. Glad you enjoy my videos. That's what I love to hear. It helps keep me going. It can be a lot of work. It's fun, but it can be a lot of work. But hearing people say things like that helps keep me going for sure. This is interesting, Droth. They have leaf litter and they ignore the shrimp and the isochag give them. Ignoring that, huh? Well, your setup's probably fairly new, and they're probably still eating things that are in the enclosure and in the substrate too, right? One of the few American accents I can cope with. I'm curious, what is it about the accent that makes it easy or difficult to cope with? And Potato Man, yes, they are bumblebee poison dart frogs. Dendrobates leucomelas, commonly known as the bumblebee dart frog. Here come a few more flies, folks, for you to munch on. I think maybe I overdid a little bit with the dusting, but it's not going to hurt anything. And thank you, Droth. I'm enjoying how the tank is looking now. Back in August when I redid it, I felt like it needed an overhaul visually, aesthetically, and so I appreciate that. It's been nice that it. I feel a little more happy with it. Guy Bob says, mission is photographing some local tree frogs and salamanders. Cool. Yeah, tree frogs, salamanders, all the amphibians are fun. We have one salamander species in my state. We have a few frog species. Don't get to see them very often, including toads. We have toads, we have frogs, but I haven't seen a toad in the wild for quite a long time, and it's actually been a few years since I've seen a frog in the wild, I think, too, besides bullfrogs, which are invasive here. I do see those fairly often. Okay, fairly new, only had them since September, so. Well, I'm kind of surprised they're not eating much, to be honest, even then, because it's been long enough, I would think. But I guess there still could be a lot of nutrients in the substrate and in the leaf litter you added and so on. Maybe that's why. So Melanie Cam, I have an empty 10-gallon aquarium that I got a conversion kit for to turn it into a vertical enclosure. Any suggestions on what would be appropriate to keep in it? Yeah, actually, I got a lot. If you're thinking about reptiles or amphibians, there are some you could do it in there as a vertical conversion. Morning geckos would be good. You could do another small gecko in there, small gecko species. Some of the thumbnail dart frogs, if it's a conversion kit that retains a lot of moisture, you could do some thumbnail dart frogs in there. There's a lot of invertebrates that could do well in a vertical enclosure like that. Some of which, I haven't kept, but a lot that I have kept. I mean, you could do a lot of interesting mantis. You could do something interesting with mantis species in there. What else could work well? Thinking insect-wise, you could do something arboreal. I don't remember where you're located, Melanie Kim, but if you're located in a place where you can keep phasmids, that could be an option. Let's see. So green Jedi monkey. Not working with the night gold anymore. I ended up overselling, so basically sold all of my stock, and because I had committed to a sale and sold all of my stock, and though I love how they look, working with them was kind of a tricky business because it required a lot of culling and line breeding and stuff. It's not like a single gene recessive trait that was easy to isolate it. And so in some ways it's nice not to have to worry about it anymore, but it's also kind of sad that I don't have them. And it's also really nice when I see a post like on Instagram or something and somebody says, here is Armadillidium vulgare night gold, and I look at it and I say, yep, that's what I was hoping. They're out in the hobby now, other people are working with them, and they're doing their thing. So I enjoy that, enjoy seeing that they're out there, but I am no longer working with that strain. I'm really narrowing down on stuff that I'm working with. So like with Armadillidium vulgare, I'm really working with, trying to focus my efforts. And so one of the few I'm still working with is the True Magic Potion line, the one that Kyle Candillian and Jay Fiore originated. I got stock straight from Kyle, so I know it's pure stock. It has not been mixed in with the Japanese magic potion or anything like that. And that's basically, I've got a few others. I've got, what's another one I have right now? I've got the Santa Lucia, which I love. And not very many others, maybe one or two others. And yeah, I'm just really trying to focus in on a few. Droth, yeah, that's probably a good idea. I wish I had better information for you. Sometimes it can be hard to pin these down. But might as well try unplugging the heater and see what happens. Taking out the old food, definitely a good idea. Yeah, try something new and see what happens. Let me know how it goes. So let's see, Plant Daddy, I do have isopods in here. If I were to like pick up some of this leaf litter, you'd probably see some isopods crawling around on it. So yeah, Melanie, mantids might be a really good place to go. There are some mantids that are like maybe not controversially communal, and some that are definitely not communal at all. So you could do some research on that and see, but some mantids could be a really good way to go. And William Duran, I want to keep phasmids too. There are native species in my state, and I wanted to attempt to source some native species and get those breeding. I don't know what your laws are like for mantids in Nevada, Melanie. They're kind of restrictive here. We have some, in my state, they're pretty restrictive laws on mantids. But unfortunately, only a couple species we can keep, or at least import to the state. We have the we have some native terrestrial species, like dwarf terrestrial species, Litonutria, I think is the genus, something like that. And I might try to keep some of those. They're like desert terrestrial ones, not so much arboreal. Super cool looking and fast. Oh, the Mantis Garden. Mantis Garden, can you send me a link to your podcast? I would love that if you would do that. Finding podcasts on invertebrate stuff is tricky, and I didn't even know you did one. So I would love to listen to it. So if you would just go to my Instagram DM or my Facebook DM or the Aquarimax contact page and send me a link or something, that would be awesome. Series, hello, welcome. Am I saying that right? Oh, unicorn mantis. Love those. Got to experience those in Arizona for the first time, and they're beautiful. So Melanie, yeah, small amphibians could totally, like I was saying, the thumbnail dart frogs could be an awesome species to keep in there. But constant supply of fruit flies could be a pain. I've been maintaining them for many years, but my wife is not a big fan of them. That's awesome, Joth. Mantis crashed the wedding photos. So series, how come most isopods and some other arthropods have not evolved true lungs yet? Well, I think there are probably a lot of reasons behind that. One, that the type of lungs that we have are probably not, in some ways, the ones where we use our muscles the way we do to fill and empty our lungs and whatnot, probably not physiologically compatible with a lot of arthropod body plans. And the fact that at the scale that most arthropods are working at, what they do have is fairly efficient. It's working for them. And so there's not as much selective pressure to develop a new system if the system you have is working fine. Yeah, William, I will if I end up doing that. I've only seen a couple of Litonutria in the wild down in southern Utah in the desert. I found them. I guess they're probably fairly common. Initially, when I first found the first one, I wasn't really aware we had them in the state. And then I noticed, hey, this is not any of the mantis species I'm familiar with. It is too attuned to terrestrial running. They're very, very good at running. They're very fast, and not like the more arboreal ones that we tend to see. So I was very surprised by that initially, and then it turns out that they stay a lot smaller. The adults are only around, at least the species that I found, are only around an inch long or so, which is kind of amazing. Let's see. Okay. So, Jenna Wild, depending on the airflow, I think I'm not an expert on horrid king assassin beetles by any means, but I did do a collaborative video on them with someone who does keep them. I think you could do a converted 10-gallon as long as it just depends on how much airflow there is, because that can vary widely. Now we're looking at just fruit flies crawling around. That's not as fun. Here, let's zoom out, shall we? I'm going to zoom out a little bit again, and we can see the whole vivarium at once, or we're close to it as we chat here. Sometimes it can be hard to get the whole thing in there, but something like that. So, let's see. Pill millipedes, I haven't worked with them. There are some species that will breed in captivity. They tend to be very small species. The larger ones tend not to do well. I think there are some people making some progress with them, the pill millipedes, but even that seems to be kind of spotty. No pun intended, because some of the pill millipedes are spotted. Max Cantrell is here. Hello. So serious. Isopods just fill the niche that stays humid and moist to some degree. To a large degree, that is true. There are some isopods that are adapted to live in drier places, but they have adaptations that allow them to live in a microclimate where they don't dry out completely. Like Hemilipistes is a desert genus, and they live in special burrows that are constructed to make sure that they get enough moisture. So even though the desert itself is quite dry, they can access the moisture in their burrows. There is a strain of Porcellio laevis that lives here in the desert. I have some of those, and they're very desert adapted. They tend to be more fossorial, so they can create a little kind of cocoon where not a cocoon, but they create little micro burrows where the moisture is higher and things like that. So that is what they tend to do. So yeah, great question. So William Duran, yeah, if you're in Colorado, you might have the same species that we do here. Parabacillus coloratus and Parabacillus hesperus are the two species I'm aware of that we have here. And I know, well, there may be another species you're thinking about too, because those two species can get fairly long. I'm thinking like 3 or 4 inches. So Melanie KM, that's awesome. See, I wish I could have roaches here in my house. I cannot. I wish I could. It would make it work. Make a lot of things easier if I could have roaches and not have to breed crickets. So yeah, phasmids, the main thing with phasmids here is either you have to have species that you can find locally without having to cross state lines, or you have to have a containment facility in order to get them permitted and have them ship across state lines legally. So those are your options, basically. We don't have any that are on the exempt list or anything. Phasmids are just, they're all, from my understanding, you have to have a containment facility to legally accept phasmids across state lines. So Melanie, this is a 29 gallon. So millipedes are basically the myriapods of isopods, or maybe it was vice versa. Yeah, something like that. They're very similar in many ways. Millipedes are a little tougher to keep in that they have more specific needs. They need, for example, rotting wood. Most species need rotting wood, appropriately rotted wood, more than isopods do. Isopods benefit from it, but for millipedes it is often a necessity. You can keep millipedes, or you can keep isopods, many kinds of isopods, not all, on really nutrient-poor substrates as long as they have, above that they have like some nice leaf litter, so that like the base substrate can be pretty nutrient-poor. And for many isopods, as long as you have the leaf litter and other supplemental foods, most millipedes can't handle that, for example. So Plant Daddy, have you ever added a carnivorous plant in the enclosure? How did it work out with the isopods? I haven't put any carnivorous plants in here. I do keep some carnivorous plants, have kept some. The only species I have right now is Drosera capensis, which is a really great species for helping to control fungus gnats. And I'm actually going to post a video soon about that, about my experience with Drosera capensis and fungus gnats. And Drosera capensis might actually be a better candidate for some than some carnivorous plants for a vivarium like this, just because it doesn't require a dormancy period like some other carnivorous plants do. Like I've kept Venus flytraps, but the dormancy thing, is kind of tricky. And I have successfully had a Venus flytrap go into dormancy and come back out of it. But it's just one of those things where if I had more time and energy, I'd definitely be focusing more on it, but I don't. So it's one of the things it's kind of low on the list of things that I'm going to start something, you know what I mean? But I do love carnivorous plants and hope to keep a wider variety of them at some point. So William Duran, which type of pill millipedes are they? Glomeris species pill millipedes? Yeah, roaches and tarantulas. I only have one tarantula. At least I do have one tarantula. Can't have roaches here in my house. It is so sad. Max Cantrell finds the local flatback millipedes don't require rotting wood. Cool. Yeah, there's some that don't, but many that do. Let's see, still catching up. Max Cantrell is getting a new mantis in the post tomorrow. Subadult male peacock mantis. Awesome. Anyone enter for day 8 of the 12 Supreme Days of Christmas? Deadline, I do believe, is 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. Well, good luck to anyone who is entering. I hope somebody is entering. I donated a prize to the contest, so I hope people are entering and winning other prizes too. And good luck with your new mantis, Max. That's awesome. So, Ceres, has anyone ever cared for and bred giant deep sea isopods? It's pretty tricky to keep. They have some at our local aquarium, but honestly, and they're super cool to go see. I went and I've gone and seen them a few times. In fact, I really like them. They're amazing. And they're huge, of course. They're not very active at all. I've not even sure I've ever seen one move at all, ever, even though I sit there and watch them for a while. So they do keep them in aquariums, but I don't know that they breed in aquariums, the big ones. I have bred saltwater isopods, like marine isopods are really easy to breed, some of the smaller species. They show up in marine aquaria, basically just on their own. They come in the live rock that you put in there. And so I've done that. I don't have any marine aquariums right now, but I have in the past. And I think they're cool, but I don't know if anybody's bred the really big ones. Okay, so William has Hyloglomera species. Cool. I'm not too familiar with that genus myself, but that sounds very cool. Yeah, sometimes the giant marine isopods have gone for years without eating. I've heard of that, where they've been in an aquarium for like 2 or 3 years and no sign of having eaten at all. So kind of crazy. Let's see. Did you know there are freshwater isopods? Yeah, I've actually kept and bred those too. Many years ago, decades ago, my first isopods that I ever kept and bred were not marine, they were freshwater isopods. Marine came later. But I bred some freshwater isopods that I collected in the irrigation canal not far from my house. I found a dozen or so, I don't remember the exact number, put them in my tank, and within weeks I saw little baby ones in there. It was pretty cool. Oh yeah, some of the Ligia isopods, the coastal, like brackish water ones, are really cool. I got to see them when I was in Miami, Florida. They're huge and they're extremely fast, extremely active. I caught one in a small container to observe for a little while and released it shortly thereafter, so I've never kept them. but I have experienced them. They seem to be hyper aware. Like most isopods, they might ignore you, or they might be kind of afraid when you turn over a, you know, their hide or something and run. But these seem to know exactly where you were, and they'd run around the pylons or whatever on the docks and try to evade you and so on. It was really interesting. So series would be a Nazatum. Those are cool. I would want to be an orange Porcelia Hoffmannsegei. That's what I would pick. Oh, Frank to Think has basically the same answer. That's awesome. Wow, time has been flying. Does anybody have any other questions for me in the next 4 minutes? Looks like we're about to close down the stream. Just so you're aware, for those of you who hadn't heard, for the rest of 2024, obviously not much left of it, but I won't be doing live streams until after the new year. Should be the first Tuesday after the new year. I might have to end up switching that when the semester starts up again and so on, but probably Tuesday around the same time, 5 to 6 p.m. I will start live streams again, but for the rest of the year, I'm just doing shorts and the normal Friday videos will be coming out for the next couple of weeks. But on Tuesdays, just shorts, and that's what we're looking at. Just so I can spend more time with family and so on. But I'll be back to doing live streams every other week next month, and a live stream one week and then a short the next week, something like that. Once we get going again. So let's see, Max Cantrell, Porcelia spinicornis, a little bit. I have kept them before, and they bred for me for a while, but the colony didn't actually do that great. So, and thank you. Happy holidays to those of you who celebrate the holidays coming up too. Thank you, Mike Fernandez. That's awesome. Yeah, we don't have spinicornis around here that I've ever seen. There's not very many species of isopod that I have seen here. I think I've seen 4 species of isopod in this state wild. I have seen, of course, Porcelia scabra and Armadillidium vulgare. I've seen Porcelionides, probably Pruinosis was the species. Porcelia laevis, that might actually be it, those 4. And thank you, Melanie, I appreciate that. Happy holidays to you as well. Let's see, Cappuccino. I did have a colony of Cappuccino. It's been a while. I don't currently keep them now. So Max Cantrell, one of the favorite native isopods is the ant woodlouse. Is that the H. danicus? Is that the one you're talking about? So Chet, you found Oniscus ocellus in Provo Canyon. Interesting. That is interesting. I've never seen Oniscus ocellus here, but that doesn't mean they're not here. It just means I haven't seen them. Oh, Platyarthurus Hoffmannsegei, that one. Okay. All right. Happy Christmas to you, Mantis Garden, and good luck with your pairings. That's fantastic. Well, it's about time to close down here. Yeah, series. One thing that Orrin McMonigal says in his book, Isopod Zoology, one of the reasons that isopods may have colonized so many different habitats is because of their biphasic molting. They are not as vulnerable when they molt because they only molt half of their body at a time and have enough legs that are still functional during a molt that they can escape predators. And so that may be part of the reason why they have colonized land, freshwater, and marine habitats. Pretty cool. Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate you joining in and all of your support this year. Thank you for the super chats. Really helps. Oh, I see Tima's popped in there. Happy holidays to you as well. And thank you, everyone. Have a great one.